Friends, apologies that I could not be live with you today, so allow me to offer some thoughts responding to the moderator's questions. As you know, a few days ago, UNEP's IPCC emissions gap report was issued with the reality that we are far behind achieving the Paris goal of keeping the temperature at 1.5 degrees, and we are heading towards 2.8 degrees. This tells us that countries must step up and increase their levels of reduction ambitions. But it also tells us that climate change is staying with us and we have to adapt to it. Therefore, climate change adaptation must become at the heart of every country's development strategy. We need to understand that adaptation refers to adjustments in ecological, social, and economic systems in response to existing or expected climate impacts. That means we must find appropriate measures and solutions that address changes in processes, practices, and structures to moderate potential damages or to benefit from opportunities associated with climate change. COP27 must ensure that we achieve essential progress towards enhancing climate change resilience and assisting the world's most vulnerable communities. We need to make sure that the negotiators at COP27 make significant progress on climate finance, including the delivery of the promised 100 billion per year to assist developing countries. COP27 must consider that it is not enough anymore for negotiators alone to decide on the fate of the planet and its people. We need these decisions to be inclusive with active participation from all stakeholders who should not only be invited to side events, but invited to sit on the table of decision making and contribute perspectives and solutions. We call for strengthening a global early warning system that is accessible to all, especially the vulnerable communities. Any adaptation strategy should be ecosystem based, maximizing nature based solutions. Countries must build climate resilience infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and power lines that can withstand shocks from extremely climate impacts. We must reassert to the negotiators that it is not acceptable to get to 2030 with one in two people are expected to face severe water shortages. Adaptation measures must leave no one behind. Friends, we are facing multiple crises that are interlinked. We cannot work on solving one without addressing the other. Ecosystem degradation and pollution are different sides of the climate change crisis, and any failure or progress in one means a failure or progress in the other. Adopting the General Assembly resolution on a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment as a human right is just one initial step towards equality and environmental or climate justice. The adoption of the historic resolution at the fifth session of the United Nations Environment Assembly to end plastic pollution and forge an international legally binding agreement by 2024 is another good step. COP15 is just a couple of away. Both COP27 and COP15 should not be treated as two different negotiation fora, but two connected opportunities to address the interlinkages between biodiversity loss and climate change. Friends, millions of women in the world still lack access to even basic goods and services because of their gender. For women and girls who already face existing vulnerabilities, their vulnerabilities will increase due to the impacts of climate change. Women already face discrimination in access to rights and services, including land ownership and land use, housing, access to health services, and livelihood of opportunities, among others. We need to turn the tide in addressing inequalities faced by women and girls. This work must become systemic, institutional, and a commitment by national states and international organizations. We must address international and intentional and unintentional inequalities and discriminatory practices towards women and girls. The international and the cross-sectional discriminations facing women should be brought to the forefront of climate justice. This would lead to a systemic inclusion of and attention to disadvantaged women in national and international decision-making processes on climate change and adaptation. Thank you for listening.